Grand Theft Auto Vice City Stories, a game that Rockstar keeps pretending doesn't exist, considering they have yet to remaster it and bring it to Android and iOS like they did with its predecessor Liberty City Stories, as well as the original trilogy, and of course, GTA Chinatown Wars. I already made a video over 2 years ago where I explained the potential reasons as to why Rockstar never bothered to give it the same treatment as all the other games that I've mentioned, which I highly recommend watching. But to briefly sum it all up, Rockstar or perhaps Take-Two are either too greedy or too lazy to renew a few licenses for songs that would then allow us to play this amazing game and witness the absolute peak that is in the air tonight on modern hardware. Back when I made that video, I still had a tiny sliver of hope that they would eventually remaster the game for its 20th anniversary, which happens to be this year on October 31st. But seeing as we are mere months away from that date, and Rockstar have already started to ramp up the marketing for GTA 6, Vice City Stories remains just as ignored as it was for its 10th anniversary back in 2016. Or at least, that was the case before they decided to pay an homage to it as well as the original Vice City by giving the players a small Easter egg in the Ultimate Edition screenshots for GTA 6, where Jason's revolver, which is a direct replica of the equalizer from VCS, has a serial number on it that is the original release date of this game. While initially I was pretty happy to see the game being acknowledged by them, as well as the many other direct references to the original Vice City and gun skins that have the exact pattern of Tommy's iconic Hawaiian shirt, I can't help but be disappointed that Rockstar missed yet another opportunity to give the fans what they've been asking for. Thankfully, both the PSP as well as the PS2 versions of Vice City Stories can very easily be emulated without needing a beefy computer to run the game at max settings, and you can even upscale it up to 4K to enjoy it at a higher resolution. And since I mentioned the mobile ports of the other GTA games, which look and run decent on just about any phone these days, you can easily emulate Vice City Stories on both Android as well as iOS using various emulators available for each platform, proving once again that the community can deliver where Rockstar refuses to. My personal issue with Rockstar not porting the game to newer platforms is that it basically turned Vice City Stories into abandonware, as there's no official way to purchase the game anymore, sitting right next to GTA Advance as well as the original GTAs from the 2D era. Again, I find it quite frustrating that Rockstar prefers to throw in the dumpster one of the greatest games they've ever made that is also a key part of the 3D universe storyline, since it basically showed us where it all began, instead of spending what is mere pennies to them to renew a couple of licenses and bring VCS in front of modern audiences. Now, putting this small rant to the side, which did feel pretty necessary, let's talk about what made this game special, unique, and beloved by so many fans from around the world.
Alright, baby, this is the Lance Vance dance. You got to, alright, pop it and lock it, yeah! Whoa!
Vice City Stories was the second attempt from Rockstar Leeds of bringing back a familiar setting and expanding both on the stories of established characters as well as introducing a bunch of new and amazing additions. It also went above and beyond with improving what its predecessors had achieved by not only adding a ton of quality of life improvements to the core gameplay, but also by adding in new features, mechanics, fun side activities, and gameplay loops to keep you entertained in the open world. One of the greatest things that this particular game managed to achieve was utilizing the map of Vice City to its absolute maximum potential. Whereas in the original game from 2002, the setting was more of an excuse for Rockstar to give us a Scarface parody game and capitalize on the 80s nostalgia, this time around, the developers over at Leeds attempted and pretty much succeeded in packing this game with tons of stuff to do in nearly every corner of the map, with the biggest side activity by far being the famous and beloved empire building minigame, which gives you a whopping 30 properties across the map to attack and take over, and then invest and renovate them into whatever business type you want from a total of 6 with 3 different sizes: small time, medium, or high roller. Gradually unlocking these types of businesses as you progress further into the story also rewards you with cool and unique outfits, a source of passive income that increases the more properties you own, the more quote-unquote illegal and dangerous they are, and obviously the bigger the size of your business is, the more money you earn during free roam. These businesses also give you a set of unique side missions required for the 100% checklist. They can get a bit repetitive, especially if you do all of them in a row, but they are still pretty fun to engage with. And speaking of the 100% checklist, Vice City Stories is almost neck and neck with San Andreas as having one of the longest checklists required to achieve full completion of the game, which is even more impressive when you think about the fact that this game is not only a handheld made with the PSP in mind, and therefore more limited than San Andreas was for the PS2, but also because this game only takes place in the same Vice City map as the original 2002 game, and not in a full state with 3 cities like the map of San Andreas was. The same game that also had a total of 250 collectibles, 100 main missions, driving schools for each different type of vehicle found in the game, the usual vehicle related side missions, stadium events, time trials, races, and a bunch of random requirements. So again, it's pretty impressive when you take into account the difference in size between the two maps. But if we're being completely fair and honest, part of what made the checklist nearly as long as what San Andreas had offered was the artificial increase in how long the vehicle related side missions took to complete. Because for some odd reason that I can't quite comprehend, Rockstar Leads decided to increase the level requirement for these missions from the usual 12 to a whopping 15. It doesn't seem like much on paper, but when you take into account that this is the case for every single side mission, it does add up quite a bit. Not to mention that VCS introduced two of the most beloved side missions to ever be made, those being Air Rescue and Firecopter, which personally made me pretty hesitant to attempt going for the 100% completion of this game. But I did eventually power through, mainly because most of the other content the game has to offer and is also required for completion was really fun to engage with. Also, to somewhat balance things out, the game does offer a checkpoint system for all of these side missions, including the original trio of Vigilante, Paramedic, and Firefighter, with the game saving your progress every 5 levels down in a row. But I still don't see a reason for them to not keep the regular 12 levels and make it so the checkpoint is every 4 levels instead. However, it's a welcome addition nonetheless. Speaking of side content that I had a lot of fun with, besides grinding out empire building takeovers across the map and doing the missions for each of the different business types, I also love doing all of the water sport time trials, which are done with jet skis, and honestly, they're one of the most fun to drive vehicles in this game, which is something I can't quite say for GTA 5 or even GTA 4, where I found driving boats to be quite underwhelming. So hopefully, this is something else that GTA 6 ends up fixing. Let's also not forget about swimming, which is another very welcomed addition and was kind of a given considering the amount of times that both main missions as well as side activities have you going across the waters of Vice City. Another aspect of Vice City stories that makes it very unique and offers a metric ton of replaying value is that, for the most part, it fixed one of the biggest problems that the franchise always faced with pretty much every other game, which was the lack of a proper use for the money that you make in the game, whether from missions or other ventures. For the longest time, money in GTA games only served as nothing more than a fancy high score system that was displayed on the screen. Prior games like Vice City in particular was mainly focused on the same building a criminal empire aspect. But even that game didn't require you to grind out that much money in order to purchase every asset and safe house available in the game. While the game pioneered this aspect, I think Vice City Stories improved a lot on it, while adding in the gang territory mechanics from San Andreas and blending it all together to create a very addictive gameplay loop. The empire building aspect is far from perfect, especially when your businesses are constantly being attacked every 5 minutes while you're in the free roam mode, and on top of that, the constant attacks from rival gangs that hate you, which can become unbearable, especially towards the later half of the game, when you will for sure make the sharks your biggest enemies, and they'll constantly hunt you down, which ends up ruining the experience for a lot of people. If you really think about it, this game kind of pioneered the same model of businesses that we now have in GTA Online, more so because of the annoying aspect of constantly being griefed by rival gangs, whether with business attacks or directly hunting down the player. But also because you can modify and play around with the different types of businesses, and you don't necessarily have to commit to any of them. So again, it's far from a perfect minigame, but the aspect of having to purchase these properties and then having to invest more if I want to increase the size of the building as well as changing the type of business that it runs, offers the player a way to spend their money in a meaningful way besides buying weapons and ammo, which is the case for most of the other games. The game also introduced the mechanic of buying back your weapons when you're either wasted or busted, which especially at the beginning stages of the game can be very punishing because you can end up eating into the money that you've saved in order to purchase a new empire building. The modern games simplify this aspect by merely taking a cut of your money when you respawn at the hospital that increases the more money you have. Also, besides these two mechanics, the game allows you to purchase various vehicles like the Little Willy, which can be bought for $5,000 from Vic's apartment, which is yet another welcome addition. Other unique mechanics that I love about this game is the addition of grappling NPCs, throwing them and even snapping their necks if you sneak behind them, which made the hand-to-hand combat pretty entertaining, especially for a 3D era GTA game. But another great aspect of Vice City Stories is the absolute massive improvement in quality when it comes to the story. As much as I love Liberty City Stories, for a lot of the great things that it did and improved upon, one of its weakest aspects is the story itself. Mainly because it lacks a proper villain, or more so because the person who should have been the actual final villain was killed off 1/3 into the story instead of during the final mission. But if you want to learn more more about that, check out this video where I break down how the story of LCS could have been improved. Now, going back to VCS, the story is one of my absolute favorites in the series, as it blended pretty well the unserious nature and humor of the 3D era, but it also had its serious and deep moments, a brief but somewhat unexplored love story between Victor Vance and Louise Cassidy, and it was one of, if not the only game, where the protagonist is portrayed to us as being somewhat morally grey, as Vic's motivation throughout the entire story is mostly about his family and especially about his sick brother Pete, who needs money for his treatments. Vic is also shown to be hesitant to getting involved in the criminal underworld and even more so to dealing drugs. It doesn't really help that Lance drives him further down this path, as well as constantly getting him into trouble, but his internal conflict and the cost of trying to be a good guy in a bad man's game, as Jerry Martinez puts it, is directly shown to us. There's definitely more to talk about here, but I won't bore you with a lore analysis, at least not today. All in all, despite some of its flaws, Vice City Stories definitely has its own charm and is easily one of the most underrated entries in the franchise. It took a lot of what each of the prior games gave us, and in some aspects it made things even better, but it also introduced a lot of new and never before seen mechanics and gameplay loops that made it unique in its own way. Again, it's quite a big shame that Rockstar basically decided to turn this game into abandonware by ignoring it for so many years. But again, thanks to emulation, you can still enjoy this game and all of the amazing things that it has to offer, either on your PC or even your phone if it can handle the task. But what are your thoughts on VCS? What did you personally like or dislike about this game? Let me know in the comment section down below. And while you're there, also leave a like. And of course, consider subscribing if you want to see more. Thank you so much for watching.